Before you know what kindness really is, you must lose things. Feel the future dissolve in a moment like salt in a weekend broth. What you held in your hand, what you counted and carefully saved, all this must go so you know how desolate the landscape can be between the regions of kindness. How you ride and ride thinking the bus will never stop. The passengers eating maize and chicken will stare out the window forever. Before you learn the tender gravity of kindness, you must travel where the Indian in a white poncho lies dead by the side of the road. You must see how that could be you, how he too was someone who journeyed through the night with plans and the simple breath that kept him alive. Before you know kindness as the deepest thing inside, you must know sorrow as the other deepest thing. You must wake up with sorrow. You must speak to it till your voice catches the thread of all sorrows and you see the size of the cloth. Then it is only kindness that makes sense anymore. Only kindness that ties your shoes and sends you out into the day to gaze at bread. Only kindness that raises its head from the crowd of the world to say, "It is I you have been looking for," and then goes with you everywhere, like a shadow or a friend. This is the Mac Oligarchy podcast, and I'm your host, Tim McClone. That was a poem by Naomi Shahid K called Kindness, 1952. 1952. I saw that poem and it just made me think about my life because I worked for corporations for many, many years, and you have these coaching meetings with team leaders and superiors, and they try to mold you and put you in this box. And they said, there's that strategy. A few companies I had that had, you're an amiable, you're a driver, you're an analytic, you're a skeptic. And if you want to be good, you got to be in all four quadrants. I mean, I read those books cover to cover before I worked for my first company. But see, what happened to me when I was young, I was told that I had an intimidating presence. And, some coaches are like, you need to wear glasses. You need to, comb your hair this way. You need to sit this way. You look so intimidating. So I was able to mold myself and come across as an amiable, which is, feelings. It's all about feelings. But I'm a driver analytic at my core. But I do lead with kindness. I would say overall I'm a nice person. But I would say this, if anyone knows me, don't mistake my kindness for weakness. And that's what a lot of companies did. I'm the type of individual, I guess it's the Italian-Irish, you screw me over, I'll never forget about it. And I'm relentless. Sometimes I'm a steamroller. I can let it off, let it go, roll right off me. Just depends how bad the situation is. But I also can be relentless, and I will never stop. So maybe that's a flaw. I've worked on it. But usually I'm a steamroller. But I would say this to people that are kind to you. Don't think they want something from you. That's a big mistake a lot of people make. Don't mistake someone's kindness for weakness. Maybe they got a good heart, but don't mistake it for weakness. Because a lot of people did that in companies I worked for. A lot of people. So I like that poem. And, I think it's important to lead with love and kindness, especially right now. But, keep an open mind. Don't assume, everyone thinks that someone's got an angle, and some people do. But I believe that it's important to be kind to people and help people. But don't mistake that. Don't mistake that when you meet people for weakness. That's all I'll tell you. So right now, the third world, isolation of the United States continues. And we'll get to that. But I think this first story that I want to discuss kind of leads right into what my first podcast was all about and what this is all about. And I think it's important to restate this because this is the reason I'm doing this. And I think it's so important. And the way we should look at the chessboard right now, I think the most important thing is maintaining the ability for us to discuss what needs to be discussed what needs to be talked about in a place where it can be found by people who want to hear it. 100%. And I think that's so important. And I think we all need to have a voice, and a lot more people need to speak up. Because, like I said, what's more important than the border, what's going on with the wars and policy, is freedom of speech, which is under attack right now. And a lot of that was exposed during those Twitter files. But I think that's what everyone's fighting for right now. And, I believe in that. I believe everyone has a right to be heard, and you can agree to disagree. And if you don't want to listen to a certain individual, you can turn them off. But I want to hear all voices on stuff I don't agree with. I want to hear people's opinion. I want to have open debate, be able to debate it civilly like two human beings, two adults. And I think that's so important. And that kind of leads right in. Right now, the U.S. Supreme Court has been hearing arguments today, the last 4 days, on what could be one of the most consequential rulings related to free speech in decades. The case Murphy versus Missouri, it resolves around efforts by the U.S. government agencies, including the CDC, the FBI, to influence the narrative around major events such as COVID-19, by either leaning on the social media platforms to censor posts, topics, and accounts, which was, it was going on ridiculously. So the case was brought by two states, Missouri and Louisiana, as well as 5 individuals against the federal government. Was in part, I think it was animated by Elon Musk's decision to publish the Twitter files. And that was pretty consequential. That was a trove of emails, texts, and other company correspondence, which showed the extent to which government agencies ranging from the CDC to the CIA went to contact with managers at these social media platforms, and the revolving door of CIA officers, FBI officers working at these social media companies in direct contact with the CEO and content providers, and getting updates on a weekly basis. So, and it was, managing the content over this all happened during the, the vaccine stuff and the effectiveness of the lockdowns. So I think, overall, the case could not be more significant for American society as far as the freedom of speech is concerned. And, the reason is that, the heart of the case is what constitutes disinformation and what steps governments can take to combat it. So in this case, many of the claims censored by social media companies, at the behest of the government, turned out to be true, 100%. This includes, widespread censorship of social media posts claiming that COVID-19 that carry health risks and that lockdowns were not only ineffective but also damaging. They censored that, and now it turned out to all be true. There's a lot of risk with the vaccines, and the lockdowns were ineffective and didn't work, and they should have never done it. So, I got a problem, as you folks know. Just I'm usually not a political person, but I think it's important to talk about this stuff for business. And I got a problem with both Republicans and Democrats. Republicans have alleged that the same dynamic was at play when social media giants censored the New York Post. When I remember that big Post article, and I think that was wrong. I wouldn't wish that on either side. They were reporting on the now infamous Hunter Biden laptop story, which we know is, interesting and true. And they're, these intelligence agencies, they're arguing that the deep state actors lent on the platform to block the coverage. And there were Twitter executives involved in the decision, denies this with, one of them, you remember Yo Roth saying, "I believe Twitter erred in the case because we wanted to avoid repeating the mistakes of 2016. So the irony, of course, is that the mistakes of 2016 refers to the widespread allegations that Trump colluded with the Russia government to sway this year's election, including on Facebook. Those Russians did those $200,000 of Facebook ads. So none of these claims have been proved true, and like the effect of fake news on the election, have been debunked 100%. So nonetheless, Russiagate narrative itself, one of the most sweeping disinformation campaigns of recent years, took a firm hold in American public life, in large part thanks to claims of disinformation that lay at the heart of the campaign. And we had senators testify under oath that they had no evidence of collusion, when then everything came out that the Clinton campaign paid for this and $15 million and the dossier, and it just 100%. If you followed this stuff, and I have news feeds that follow this stuff, 100% proven false. So I think all this stuff, it speaks to the central challenges of the case. While the government critics argue that disinformation is a cudgel with silenced dissent, proponents argue, and we look at both sides, proponents argue that a core government function is to police information, especially during times of emergency. Let me say that again. A lot of people think, especially government people, that the core government function is to police information, especially during times of emergency. Really? So here's my 2 cents. If you think about what is the purpose of the government, why, I guess the question you could ask is, why do governments exist? Let's look at it holistically. It's really to protect the health and safety and welfare of its citizens. That is from Obama White House counsel Catherine Rimler. She said that during a panel discussion in New York University's School of Law. So, while the U.S. media has largely taken the government's position on the case, Justice Alito raised a pertinent issue in oral arguments when describing the White House's constant pestering of Facebook's. He noted that he cannot image federal officials taking that appropriate, approach to the print media. So, kind of in a nutshell, the risks that a ruling in favor of the government runs, it's one of the, precedent setting. So would the U.S. media or any of Americans' elite class currently argue in favor of the state's ability to influence social media giants through heavy-handed pressure tactics? Concurs with the government's action. When you look at the New York Times articles, and then not the New York Post, which finds itself on the wrong end of the censorship. So, my 2 cents, I don't agree with what she said about policing. If you think what is the purpose of the government, why do governments exist? It's really to protect the safety and welfare of the citizens. That's what she says. So, I would say the purpose of the government is to defend the rights of its citizens, whether those rights are being violated by fellow citizens or foreign enemies. To claim that the purpose of the government is to protect the welfare of its citizens is to give the government unlimited license, ladies and gentlemen, to do virtually anything and, infantilize its citizens. So I think I'm perfectly capable of protecting my own health and safety and welfare. I've done a pretty good job of that. I never got sick during COVID. I never got COVID. Provided my rights are guaranteed. I think, to paraphrase Benjamin Franklin, those who would give us essential rights to purchase a little temporary safety will possess neither rights nor safety. Now that's profound. Those who would give us essential rights to purchase a little temporary safety will possess neither rights nor safety. So I would argue the government's gotten a little out of control. And the Twitter files expose that. All the lies have been exposed. The 50 intelligence agencies. Now we know the Hunter laptop story is true, but they censored that for the election purposes. But see, the difference is I don't take a political side. If the Democrats were doing that, which they did in this case, or the Republicans, the Republicans did it, I would be against both sides doing it. Because it's just wrong. It's no bold-faced lie, and it's censorship. And let the American people decide what is true or false. They're not stupid, just like, we have people people saying that, black people are too stupid to vote with an ID. You don't know how to get an ID, so you need help. It's very insulting. And, if you can get a credit card, if you got to go to a ball game and flash your ID to get a beer, usually, you can, the most important right you have is voting. And you can, take time to get an ID and get ready for an election that happens once every 4 years and put that on your calendar. So enough said about censorship, but I think that's an interesting, it's a profound case about freedom of speech. And that's the whole reason I got into this game. And I think it's important. I want to hear everyone's speech, even opinions I disagree with. That is freedom of speech, and that's what makes this country unique. And if you travel around the world, which I have, I've been to Venezuela, I've been to other countries, third world countries, and my brother was in North Korea with my dad. And it's crazy what's going on in the world. And a lot of Americans, 80%, have never had their passport stamped. And you don't know how bad it is out there. It's bad. And it's in the last place for them to take it away is here. And it's happening. And this is something I'm passionate about. We're kind of getting into the real estate a little bit. This is important to talk about this right now, because this leads right into freedom of speech and your private property rights. That's what gives you true sovereignty. Sovereignty is you have private property rights. You have the right to own property. So this is pretty wild right now, what's going on. And it's all over the news, especially in the last couple of weeks. But I researched a lot more, and I didn't know it went this deep. And when we're talking about a homeowner was arrested for confronting squatters in New York. Squatters in a place they owned. This was ABC New York. It was all over Twitter. Investigative team showed up on site. They captured alarming footage of a homeowner dealing with squatters. This homeowner has her deed. It's her house, by the way. So the squatters are living in her home before eventually being arrested. She was arrested by police for being on her own property, ladies and gentlemen. So Adele inherited her family's home in Flushing, Queens, and was preparing to sell the home. She left it empty, getting it ready, and was, preparing to sell, and she discovered people living inside. The group living in the home had the locks on the doors changed, so she couldn't enter. The homeowner reached out to the local news outlet to see if, they could bring some attention to the situation. They ended up filming a shocking encounter, and I saw the live video, and it was pretty shocking. So they stood outside the home, the news crew, and a woman approached the front door and unlocked it with her own key. And then she fled when she saw the cameras. And, since the door was unlocked, the homeowner went inside and discovered two men living in the house where her furniture and personal belongings still sat in the house. And after an exchange of words, it got a little heated. Police were called, and the two men were removed from the property temporarily. And she had a locksmith waiting nearby and had the doors lock changed. But about 10 minutes after she had the door locks changed, 10 minutes later, the squatters came back and forced their way into the home. Like I said, despite having the deed to the home on her person, with the police present, the police officers arrested the homeowner for unlawful eviction. When the squatters, not paying rent, they called the cops on her. She said, "I'm being arrested for being in my own home." She told the news cameras directly, and she was handcuffed like a criminal. And she showed on camera her deed is current and legal. She's the rightful owner of the property. It's just, so neither the police officers or the eyewitness news team were provided a lease. They asked, "Do you have a lease agreement? Are you paying rent?" And now both parties are being forced to play the waiting game, as it could take up to 2 years to solve an eviction case in New York because of the backlog. And I was astounded right now because I started digging into this, and this is happening all over. So these types of situations, they're happening more often because word is spreading of eviction loopholes that could, explode in magnitude if millions of illegal immigrants coming to America get wind of the scam. There's Facebook pages of how to teach people how to do this. There's two sides. People on social media criticize Americans' unfolding eviction crisis. All these squatters had to do, was claim he lives there because it's illegal in New York to turn off utilities, change locks, and remove belongings of someone who claims to be a tenant. And it will take an average of 20 months for the landlord to evict this guy who's basically stealing her house. Stealing her house. So how the hell do you get arrested for chasing out a squatter in your damn house? This is getting nuts. I can't believe I'm saying this. So, hey, we got to look at policy. It's Democrat New York policy. It's quite sickening. What is happening is, I just saw an article, Atlanta, Georgia. They said this is it's exploded in Atlanta. Bellevue, Washington, terrible. New York, this story. Chicago, a lot of blue states. California. But all 50 states have squatters' rights. And there was a big story, this is a little while back, a guy in Brentwood, a lot of people talked about it. I even called the guy's secretary and got her on the phone. This lady was living there for, beautiful house in Brentwood. She's living in a guest house. I called the secretary and wanted to help him out for free. I turned him on to an attorney, but he said he already had an attorney. And she was living there free. This is a massive rental. And this guy lost, 6 figures. And it's just... So these criminals are brazen. They learn about the loopholes. What my understanding is, if they're there over 30 days, then they're locked in. And a lot of them are going to abandoned homes or homes that are for sale, what have you. So my recommendation is, if you got no one living there and you're about to sell it, you need to put cameras up. You need to have a neighbor pay them, keep an eye on your house so you can look at it on your phone. Because they are purposely targeting homes that look abandoned, looking in windows, looking in homes that are for sale. Even some people I read were going online, looking at for sales, looking at Google Maps, what have you. So this is going to be a thing. And this leads right into another story. Then I saw this guy, and this was brazen. This is a wonderful story. A Venezuelan illegal calls for, he's got about 300,000 followers on TikTok. He calls for his, 300,000 followers to invade unoccupied U.S. homes. He says, they're ours. We'll take them. I think it will be my next business, he said. Invade abandoned homes. He said his African friends told him that they already have 7 houses. And they're going to teach him how to do it. So he called on his 300,000 TikTok followers, to take advantage of this loophole in states that allow squatters to move in. And a lot of states do. Ladies and gentlemen. So he said he learned of the legal loophole himself in some states like New York that allows squatters to live inside empty homes. Like I said, there's Facebook pages on how to teach people how to do this. So the law says that if the abandoned houses are deteriorated and that they are in bad condition, we can get repair and live in it and even sell it, he said. He went on to explain that he knows some African migrants who've already done it, and I think it will be my next business, invade these abandoned homes, maybe even homes for sale, since I searched for some condos with my African friends, and they told me that they already have 7 on the verge of getting 8. So this Venezuelan national goes on to say that the best course of action for illegal aliens like him is to invade houses and get some property. Since, he said, we have a street situation, and it is the only way we have to avoid living on the street and not be public burden. We must get sophisticated. We must learn about these loopholes. So he's bragging on TikTok how he exploits, his child to leech off the U.S. taxpayer to avoid working and live like he's on a vacation. So they're all on vacation. Sneakers, money, cell phone, get flown all over the United States, debit card. It's happening. I know people on the border. I still have friends that don't believe this. It's unbelievable. It is happening because they want voters. They want to change the demographics. And now they feel that they deserve to move into your house, your rental property, if you have the deed and you're the owner, and you choose to keep it empty, or maybe you're going to sell it down the road, or you're going to do some rehab work. It's theirs. I have friends that were robbed in LA in nice homes in the valley, and they said, "It's okay, Tim." I go, "What do you mean it's okay?" "It's okay. We need open borders. Your house just got robbed by an illegal." And because there's massive more crime now because the borders are open and they're not prosecuting it, it's okay. Some are saying that. Some are turning and they're appalled. We're talking to a friend in Venice Beach who's got a nice house as well. Not only the homeless problem with people defecating in front of his yard, but he got robbed. And yeah, it's okay. Really, really. I'm telling you. And a lot of these countries have what's called a rape culture. And a lot of rapes are going on throughout the world in these countries, and it's happening in Europe all over, and it's coming here. And someone talked about this on a podcast, and you think this is a good thing when people are coming across your border and they're not vetted, and this arrogant Venezuelan national saying that he's just going to take your property. Let me say this, ladies and gentlemen, this is being funded by Soros and other NGO groups, and it's being funded. This doesn't happen. There's a lot of money behind this. And like I said, true Salvarian rights are you're the rightful owner of your own property. That's what is a beautiful thing, is being able to own private property. You're not on leased land. You own the land. It's your property. And they're wanting, and this is a wake-up call. They're allowing this to happen. All these squatter rights should be overturned. Why are these squatter rights? If you're in New York right now, you're going to buy rental property there when you hear this? You're going to live there? Really? Atlanta? I called my friend in Atlanta. He's got 11 houses in Marietta and other places. He hasn't been affected yet, but he says it's a big time problem, and it's just getting started. And then you consider the cases that are backlogged. This poor woman in New York, this guy is going to live there for 2 years. And he stated, they said, "Why are you here?" And then he admitted on camera, he goes, "Yeah, I'm squatting. What are you going to do about it? You got to go to court and kick me out. I'm going to stay here." He said that. The arrogance. Everyone, Democrat or Republican, should be appalled at this. They're coming after the mom and pop property. BlackRock's coming in and buying tons of property. I have a friend that works there, and he's like, "Tim, we just keep the properties empty. We can afford to do it. They can afford to keep the properties empty, BlackRock. They just keep them empty. Do they got to kick someone out? Whatever." And they bring in the big guns if they have to. But if you're a mom and pop, you don't have those resources. You don't know the judges. You can't get your case moved forward if BlackRock does need that property. This is going to squeeze the little guy. I think it's terrible. This is unbelievable. You have the deed to your property. Hey, this is my property. This guy changed the locks, came into my house. So my understanding is, like I said, if it's more than 30 days, but if you get it early, you can get them out. But if they're there more than 30 days, so I urge you to get cameras for your property that's tied to your smartphone. Have a neighbor keep an eye on your property. Give them a nice stipend every month, because your property is so important. It's your asset. It's your livelihood. And this is just another hurdle that we got to deal with, is people that pay our taxes. We love this country. We're just trying to get by and get some property. I'm not BlackRock. I know. I mean, I'm not a major fucking baller. I'm just trying to build some wealth, man. And now you get to squat my property? It's unbelievable. So, like I said, illegal aliens are aware of this absurd legal loophole and seem eager to exploit it. So just be warned. I thought this was interesting, kind of leading into a big issue that always seems to be exploited during an election year. And, this interview that Elon Musk has argued that Americans would, if they would stop talking about racism, we wouldn't have a problem. And he was saying, he did an interview with CNN presenter Don Lemon. DL is a clown. And he's like, "Don, you like to keep talking about, maybe if we didn't talk about racism, it wouldn't be a problem." So I thought there was hope for Don, when he did that famous interview with Morgan Freeman. You should look that up on the internet about racism. That was the most authentic, and I look for authenticity. That was the most authentic I have seen Don Lemon in that interview. I said, there's hope for this guy when I saw that interview. And, bottom line is Morgan Freeman, I'll give you a kind of an overview of this. Morgan Freeman makes Don Lemon basically go silent by calling BS on blaming racism for issues. Morgan Freeman was slamming Black History Month. He said, we don't need it. He also did a 60 Minutes interview, and he said, do Jews have Jewish History Month? His argument was, we don't need Black History Month. We're all human beings. We don't need this. His argument was it keeps blacks down. You have these things as far as the History Month and other days. It's an interesting argument that he made. He told Don, you get rid of racism by stop talking about it. And Don said, if you look at Don's face in the interview, Don even said in that interview, he said he feels compelled to talk about racism because of the company he works for. So, I got the feeling there that Don had a heart. And he's like, I know what's going on with this company's trying to make me do and divide and conquer the country. And they're making me talk about this. And Morgan Freeman said, he goes, I'm a product of this great country. And Don, he said, you are a product of this great country. And look at you making millions of dollars at CNN as an African-American, Black gentleman, Black American. And I'm making, Freeman, he talked about a lot of people gave him a chance when Freeman he didn't become an actor until he was 53, very successful. He struggled throughout his 40s with alcohol. I looked at his history and, he's a brilliant man when it comes to acting. His voice is tremendous. But, a lot of people in the industry, he kind of said in an interview that were white and gave him a chance. And just like Oprah Winfrey said, there's such a racist country. The white people gave her a chance to start her media company and get started in the business. And she collaborated and became very successful. And, Morgan Freeman's point is, hey, you guys keep talking about it because you want to talk about it. And, he said, it's just stop talking about it. He said, if we keep talking about it, racism nonstop, it will never go away. It will keep making it the central theme, which CNN and these other outlets do. It will never go away. And guess who said that too? I'm using that as an example, but billionaire Elon Musk during that interview. He said that. He said, we want to get away from everything as race or gender or whatever issue and just treat people like individuals. And that's what Morgan Freeman said. We're all human beings. We're Americans. Treat people like individuals. I have friends from all races. And my successful Black, Indian friends, we don't talk about this nonsense abroad or in America. I grew up in the hood of Milwaukee. My dad would drop me off and play basketball. My best friend was Muhammad Ford, a Black gentleman. I exclusively dated Black women for 8 years. I've probably done more for the Black community than Van Jones. I'll bet you money on that one. So you have no idea. And I grew up in Milwaukee and worked out in the inner city and give me a break. And I almost got married to a Nigerian girl. So I'm the least racist guy you met. And all these guys that are successful, they're all married to like white women. So please. And I agree with Elon Musk. I agree with Morgan Freeman. And what was interesting also, I found it when I was researching this, these two, Don Lemon and Elon Musk, sparred over this for several minutes. Lemon mentioned his own experiences of discrimination. And Musk reiterated his view that people should be treated as individuals, not encouraged to view themselves as victims. And we are such a victim culture. And early in my immature life, I had that victim mentality. And it is the wrong mentality. It is the wrong mentality. And Musk said, if you study history broadly, everyone was a slave, which is true. And I saw Don Lemon someone did another interview on MSNBC they talked about slavery and how African lords had Black slaves, sold them to Europeans. So Musk's argument was everyone was a slave, Musk told Lemon. We all have descended from slaves, Musk said. It's just a question of when. It's just a question of when, he says. Was it more recent or less recent? And he also said, Musk was also, he's questioning on this great replacement theory, which holds that elites are intentionally replacing the population of Western nations with non-white immigrants from the third world. So, we got to look at both sides of this. The Tesla CEO said that he doesn't subscribe to that theory, but argued, not overall that theory, but argued, it is in the white papers of the Democrats. They've written about this, that that's what they're doing. But he argued that Democrats have an incentive to promote illegal immigration because it helps the party electorally. And you don't need a conspiracy theory when you have incentives. It is fundamental for the Democratic Party to usher in and foster a large number of illegals. It helps them win elections. So, Don was getting a little upset, and he doesn't subscribe to Elon Musk's claims. So he pressed him on those claims, which a good journalist should do. I look at both sides of this. And the ex-CEO stated that he delved into it and made a lot of sense. He said House seats, appointment is proportionate to the number of people, not the number of citizens. Without illegals, I believe there would be a net loss in blue states of approximately 20 seats in the House. What's more, illegal immigrants also vote in elections, and they usually vote for Democrats, Musk argued. So he makes a valid argument. And I've researched this. And for my research and talking to some representatives, it's 100% true. They've openly talked about this in the Democrat side. So, Musk also, talked about his, feud with the advertiser, pulled their funding from the social media platform that he owns. Lemon asks, here we go again. Lemon asks whether, advertisers' decisions weren't a form of free speech. So while Musk insisted that by pulling ads from the entire site rather than merely from particular content they found objectionable, these advertisers were harming free speech. Then I would agree with him. So he said, I'm in favor of freedom of speech. Freedom of speech only is relevant when people you don't, this is it right here. I love this. I'm in favor of freedom of speech, and freedom of speech only is relevant when people you don't like say things you don't like, Musk said. Otherwise, it has no meaning. You should have saw his face when he said that. Musk. So also, it was funny. I found out that when I mentioned Morgan Freeman earlier, LeBron James retweeted what Morgan Freeman said about Black History Month because he got it. It's like it's a victim mentality. And guess what? China called LeBron James or whoever called him and said, take that retweet down. Whether LeBron James agreed with that, the fact is he retweeted it, and it's about freedom of speech, open discussion, and have a talk about it. I don't know LeBron James's thought, but Morgan Freeman said made LeBron James think. Is this making me a victim? Is this drawing attention when we don't need to draw attention? Does 6 million Jews killed? Do we have Jewish History Month? So I'm not speaking on this. About Morgan Freeman made some valid points. And I do agree that we keep talking about racism, and one side wants every election cycle divide and conquer. Can you imagine if everyone was together and get along? They don't want that. They want to divide. There's racism, and it's just ridiculous. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. Doesn't need to be talked about. My black friends, my black girlfriends, back in the day, never talked about that. We all love each other. We never looked at color, just like Martin Luther King said. And I'm sick of it. Anyone who does that, it's just disgraceful. It's disgraceful. So, Musk, this is interesting to follow up on that story. Musk is just on a tear right now. He said America is doomed without 2024 red wave election win. He said, imagine 4 more years of this getting worse. Elon Musk says of Biden's open border policies, the ex-founder Elon Musk warned that America is doomed by endless illegal immigration unless there's a red wave this November. He said, there's either a red wave or America will never be the same if we have 4 more years of this open border policy that's bringing in crime, drugs, destruction, squatters. You have more illegal, they're going to come into your home and take over your property. So he was initially he responded to a video of a New York City woman. She was explaining how illegal immigration under Joe Biden has transformed the city into a haven of crime, with no law enforcement to protect citizens. Case in point, the squatter story I told you about in New York. This woman said illegal aliens living next door to her piss on her door, and she could tell that they're gang lords and telling her they're going to kill her. Musk stated, why does the radical far-left Biden administration welcome violent illegals into America to prey upon your friends and family, ladies and gentlemen? Why is that? I'm not going to vote for that. I got problems with the Republicans, but I want safety. I want a border where people have to come here legally. No other country has an open border. And I read a lot of reports and talk to people that are involved in this, and they say, we don't understand what you're doing in America. There is an end game. I know why it's really going on, and I talked about this. And Musk said, because he talks to other countries, very powerful man, he said, we've been warned by other countries that this is insane America, a haven. Other countries have said this. People that want to invest here, that Musk is talking to, and other people that I know, that other powerful people that, some friends of mine, they're going to make, America a haven for convicted criminals. Investors are not for sure looking in New York. They're not going to look in Atlanta. And it's the destruction of this country to fundamentally change America to a third world country, as someone said in a famous speech when he became president in 2008. Ladies and gentlemen, I have my problems with the Rhino Republicans. I have some problems with Donald Trump. I have problems with Joe Biden in this administration. But, I do believe we should have a closed border. I do believe China shouldn't dump their goods into our country. I do believe the EU should pay their fair share if they want NATO and for us to help them out. Just simple little things. I'm a middle of the road guy. I'm very progressive on women's rights and gay rights, and I'm very conservative, a fiscally conservative guy. I think I'm a pretty easy guy to get along with. I have friends from all backgrounds. I have friends that won't hang out with people that are fiscally conservative. It's unbelievable. I hang out with libertarians, Democrats, Republicans. I don't get political. I'm just getting a little political now because, I'm a businessman. It's important. I have to do business with both sides, and I want to do business with both sides, and I look at both sides, and I like to listen to both arguments. But I don't believe that you should just let anyone into a country and not be vetted, and we need to curtail it, and we need to have it controlled. When we have 10 more million Americans in poverty, our veterans are sleeping on the street, we have 60% of Americans that only have $400 in a savings account. Maybe we're full right now. We got to fix our own house before we bring people in. But yes, there is the great replacement theory. There is talk of that, and it has been written out, by the way. Democrats have written it out and talked about it, so it's on paper, and Elon Musk is right when you do the math. He is right. People are very smart when it comes to the election process and what it takes to hold House seats. So, of course. So, Don Lemon, pushing his talking points. You think, Don Lemon, you would, you're on your own now. You think you'd just be a little more middle of the road because everyone, CNN lost its full viewership. They're going to have to go to documentary programming. No one was watching it. Less than 900,000 viewers, even 500,000. And that's CNN because people don't believe it. And I'm not saying, Fox News has its issues a little bit, but I could get into what you should look for. But I get my independent media and my sources and feet on the ground abroad. But you think you'd see, wow, this is the tea leaves. And no one believes these talking points. It's amazing how stupid you think the American people are. And a lot of them are out. It's like there was an interview with Chris Cuomo and Tucker Carlson. And this is it right here. I'm going to sum it up for you. This shows Chris Cuomo and why, in my opinion, it's about authenticity and why Tucker does so well. Chris Cuomo said he reads his comments in the comments field. And, whether his podcast, his YouTube channel, he reads his comments. He's worried about that. And Tucker came back and said, why do you read that? He goes, I don't have a TV in my house. Because Chris Cuomo said, yeah, I'm walking through your house and you don't have a TV. He's like, I don't have a TV. He's like, I don't do social media. I don't look at my YouTube channel comments or anything. And the reason is, he's like, it makes me authentic. It doesn't make me clouded. It makes me speak truth to power. And that is why he's so successful. And Chris Cuomo kind of then, I think the light bulb went off a little bit, but he still can't help himself delivering the talking points because he's worried he's going to offend people. and he might not get to go to the Hamptons and go to that cocktail party or go to that party in the Hollywood Hills. You got to follow your heart. And I think Chris knows in his heart what he should be saying. But for him to say that Joe Biden is not cognitively declining, I know personally that he's on Aricept and Namenda. He's on Alzheimer's drugs, 100%. And give me a break. And when you make stupid statements like that, and people work in medical and they know people, and people know people that know people, like me, give me a break. And you can just see it there with your own two eyes. So you got no credibility. So I think that was the most profound statement he made. And that carries over to everyone. Who cares what people think? Follow your heart. Live your life. Don't read your comments if you're doing social media. I get it. I do some of that stuff, and it's hard not to kind of look, and I don't. I'm not Tucker Carlson, though. Or Chris Cuomo even, but don't. And that just shows Chris is never going to be as successful as Tucker independently, because he can't let go of that. You have to let go of that and follow your heart, and then you'll speak truth to power, because you'll block out all the noise. And that's my advice to you, Chris. I think you're a smart guy. You come from a powerful family. I think you have some good points to make. And you're an Italian guy, kind of like me. You get a little upset, get a little anger. And he also made another good point when you were trying to say a woman could kick your ass. And he said, if a woman got in your face and started yelling, would you hit her? And he goes, no. And there you go. There you go. There you go. Stop speaking stupid. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, the takedown of America is going on. So I think it's important, that you maintain your health. And I just wanted to talk about a news article that came out. I like to end on health and fitness on a lighter note. It's something I'm passionate about. And, intermittent fasting is a big thing, and I was against it from day one. And, I know it's in the Bible, but it may not be all that helpful for losing weight. And there's a lot of studies that say that. Other people, of course, would comment and say, Tim, I've lost a lot of weight on it. But, bottom line is there's been a lot of new studies that found that eating during certain windows of time have no impact on weight loss. Time-restricted eating doesn't work for weight loss. So you kind of, I get it. Intermittent fasting, you restrict the eating to 8-hour day, reducing total calories may be more effective for weight loss than intermittent fasting. That's what I think. Reducing your total calories for the day is more effective than intermittent fasting. But this study came out and it raised a lot of hell, and I'm middle road, so let me state this. A new study came out from the American Heart Association. Intermittent fasting linked to significantly higher risk of death from heart disease. The study analyzed 20,000 adults in the U.S. and, according to a press release, found that people who limited their eating across less than 8 hours per day as part of the time-restricted eating plan, intermittent fasting, were more likely to die from cardiovascular disease compared to people who ate over 12 to 16 hours per day. So when you're eating during time-restricted periods, they say it can be a host of problems for your good old heart. I think as popularity continues to grow, researchers have been studying, the diet's effects on our health, and numerous research studies have found correlations linking the type of eating to better health. This is looking at the other side of it. There have been a lot of studies that says intermittent fasting links to better health. But so this, new finding on March 18th, remember they said Cheerios are good for you, the American Heart Association. So in their scientific sessions in Chicago seem to challenge time-restricted eating health. So, they think a lot of nutritional experts have come out now, and I'm looking at both sides, say that it's to take this study with a large grain of salt. And I would say middle of the road. They're right. Because I looked at the abstract of the study, and as far as the treatment groups, and there are some issues with it. And I don't want to bore you and get into it. I would just say this. The jury's out, but there's a lot of people that will say, I lost a lot of weight on intermittent fasting. They swear by it. I like to work out and lift weights and try to gain some muscle mass. If you want to look like Jack Dorsey of Twitter and eat one meal a day and birdseed, that's what you'll look like. You're not gonna build a physique, an Adonis physique on one meal a day. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. You need to eat it. The key is when you get up in the morning, wait 2 hours before you eat it. The way you fast is you have your last meal at 7, 8 at night, and then you don't eat for 12 hours. That's how I did it. Even before intermittent fasting came out, that's how I always did it. Someone told me a long time ago. I never fell into that fat. I did try it once, and I will say this. I got into a euphoric state. Okay, it was like this, like a zone. But I know how to get into the zone anyway when I train. And I felt good for like an hour, but then I felt terrible, and I got lethargic, and I got weak. And one meal a day or eating, gorging because I was so hungry. Then I'm like, I eat, and then I'm like, oh God, I got to eat again because I can only eat over this 8-hour period, and then I can't eat again. I felt terrible. I lost muscle. I didn't like it, and it's not the way to do it, in my opinion. But the way you do it, you don't restrict yourself like that. It's bad for you. It's just, it puts your body in a weird realm. Other people will say, oh, Tim, it's great. I just have dinner at night. I don't agree with that. I don't agree. And I looked at all the research. I'm not going to gain 18 pounds like I did a muscle over my life, and then more than that on one meal a day, and restricting over 8 hours and gorging myself with a lot of calories over 8 hours. I actually kind of got more of a gut because I was like, I got to eat because I like to eat. I'm Italian, baby. I like to eat. That's the only reason I work out is because I like to eat. So I'm like eating one meal a day, and I'm like, or just 8-hour period. It's terrible. But I would just say this, and it's worked for me great. I've always done this before it came out. Just have your last meal at 7, 8 at night, and then don't eat till 9 or 10 in the morning. Get up, do your yoga, go for a walk the dog, like I said, do your inversion table, take a shower. That's what I do. I have 2 cups of water, and then I start my coffee, and I have 2 cups of coffee. Then it's about 2 hours later, and then I have my breakfast, and that works wonders for me. And I have 4 or 5 meals a day, because I train like an animal, and that's what works for me. But I give my organs, which I think is important, and I give my gut a rest over 12 hours every day, and I'm eating over 12-hour period during the day, and then I give my body a 12-hour rest. So I am concerned about the National Heart Association study. For those people that love intermittent fasting, I'm on your side a little bit. Don't hate me, because this is a culture, and I did a talk on Ozempic, and it's a terrible. I don't need to get into that. You can look at my video. This is a culture that wants to keep people sick. So I'd be very skeptic of any study, and do your own due diligence and look at the abstract and look at the treatment groups. And that's what I did. And I have some concerns about this study, and I want you to do your own research for yourself. So I'm not saying I'm against intermittent fasting. I'm technically a faster. I just fast over 12 hours when I'm sleeping at night and add a few hours in, or 4 hours in, because I like to get, and I think it's important. Sleep is very important. I get 7, 8 hours of sleep a night. So just be cautious of this study. Look at both sides of it. I have some concerns about this study. And I see value in giving your organs and body a rest by not eating constantly. But I'm concerned. I have some concerns, and I've tried it, of eating over just an 8-hour period. It just didn't work for me. And as far as weight loss, it's all about calorie restriction and control for me. So that's my health tip. Look into that study. It's been talked about from the American Heart Association, increased heart risk with intermittent fasting. So that concludes podcast. And like I always said, ladies and gentlemen, it's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll. You need to lead with love and kindness, but don't let people mistake your kindness for weakness. And this is a beautiful country. We all need to come together. God bless America. Take care to the next one.